All right, let's stand and say the pledge. Jeff's over there pointing like he's here. Uh, oh, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good to see a big crowd out here on a drizzly Thursday evening. Right. Approval of the agenda. We heard talks about moving a thing or two around.
Mayor Gauntz, I'd ask that we pull item F from the consent agenda and discuss as a council if you'd.
Yeah. You got a motion to move F and the consent agenda down to E, the Brown Ridge Development. You got a second on that?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
With that modification, anything else on our agenda need to be moved or switched? If not, I'd pleased to hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented now.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that we approve the agenda with that one modification.
Thank you, Jeff. Second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Sandra. Any more discussion on this agenda? Hearing none? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, coming on down to council comments. Since we've moved it, was going to talk about Brown Ridge just a minute, but since we moved it to the regular agenda, I'm gonna wait till then. Okay. All right, staff updates. Finance when you get caught up.
Just a note for council, that I'm moving our Powellville funds from a money market account to capital management trust, so we can earn significantly more interest on those funds,
Okay.
which should come into play when we start spending them.
Okay. All right. Anything else on the clerk side other than that? Nope. Right. Tax collector R. Lee.
In your packet, you have your August report for the 2024 property tax collections. In August, we collected $393,422.60. Year to date was a little bit more, it was $48.76, more than that. So the year to date is $393,470.46. It leaves us a little over 3.3 million to collect, and the collection percentage is 10.5%. As we post 2024 taxes, we keep an eye on things to see if anybody has 2023 or some people have 2022 taxes due and have somehow skipped them and paid the 2024s, and then we send them a friendly letter. And we've been doing prior year's collections mostly in that method.
I hate to bring this up, but has anybody come in and said they hadn't received their tax bill?
We've had very few people say that
Okay.
they have not received, they've received one and not another.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Well, that's
Yep.
good. That's good news.
so far, good.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Melchek, now that I know where you at, you got anything for
No update tonight.
me? Well, there you go. Thank you. Town manager?
Yeah, good evening, council. Just one quick update. Our Parks and Rec director, Nicole Sweat, is actually at a conference right now, doing great, representing the community at the conference. But she wanted me to pass along that the family campout and family movie night are both scheduled for September 28th. When I was on there a little bit earlier, it looked like you could still register for the campout as well. So it looks like it's going to be a fun event coming up soon for the whole family.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, public comments. We got any wrote down? Thank you, sir. Thank you. Oh, is it Corey McGraw or Lori McGraw? Corey. Okay, come on up. Okay. Thank you.
Hillary.
All right, why the survey conducted by the planning board should be dismissed. Number one, the survey allowed for participants to submit multiple survey submissions. This was allowed by the surveyor, and no constraints on the number of submissions was controlled. Secondly, identifiers, address or parcel number, which are public information on Henderson County GIS, were not collected to validate survey results. 3, the American Association for Public Opinion Research condemns representing the results of a self-selected poll as if they were the outcome of legitimate research. These polls reporting the opinions of only those who choose to participate and not those of the general public, in this case affected landowners. 1,041 is the total number of survey submissions collected if it's based off of 224 survey responses kept, being 21.5% of total submissions. It would indicate this amount. 312 survey responses from residents in the affected area only. Without identifiers, we are unable to validate that this is from actual residents. The number fails to include non-resident landowners removed from survey results. 729, 70% of the total survey responses were necessary to collect. Improper survey platform and parameters were utilized. The survey should have been limited to the intended scope. 85. These are responses opposing the rezoning proposal removed by town council staff member due to residents admitting to multiple survey responses. I've come before you previously, but I've never stated what my responses were to the survey or if any of them fell in the 312 responses from residents in the affected area. These could have been legitimate survey responses, but without identifiers, we'll never know. It's presumptive of the staff member to remove submissions and proof that the survey data has been manipulated by the town. 224. This is the number of survey responses kept, but there were a total of 1,032 affected addresses in the proposed rezoning area. This amount is not appropriate to survey statistics, which state 25 to 30% of the response rate for online surveys is appropriate. The 224 is 21.5% of total survey responses, but we're unable to prove that these are from affected landowners due to the lack of identifiers. 78% of survey responses were considered to be erroneous and created a high margin of error, resulting in the survey being invalid. The survey results show a low tolerance for precision. I just want the town to hold themselves to a high standard when it comes to in regards to these surveys. Thank you.
Thank you. I will say that you taught us a little bit about these surveys, and we will, if we do any more of them, we will tighten them up a whole lot. But I will say that the public hearing moving forward on any of this stuff is where we will seek our greatest detail of knowledge, hopefully, in our decision-making process with this. All right, let me see who I got next. I got Brian Ross.
Brian Ross, Schoolhouse Road. Thanks for saying what you just said. A lot goes into that decision. That was really preliminary. Had we spent $5,000 or $10,000 on a preliminary survey, you would have had your asses handed to you today.
Oh, exactly.
Because we would have been upset that you did that in such an early stage. But now that's gotten to that point, I know we're going to be investing more and more accurate, and nothing will be weighted more than the voices of the people who come out to that hearing. That said, I didn't get a chance to call Jeff today, chair of the planning board. I might get in trouble for getting ahead of him on this. Thank you to everybody that was able to listen to the last planning board meeting. Jeff, I believe you were listening. James, I believe you were listening. Shay, I know you were out of town, and thank you to Sandra and Mayor for coming. This didn't come back with any changes, the request for rezoning. But I wanted to explain to you why it didn't. Jeff, I know you had made the comment the last meeting that you'd like to see a business corridor. The planning board took this up because we saw a conflict in what the people said they wanted, the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, and the zoning. So that conflict is what started this conversation. So when we sent it to you, we sent it without business because we aligned our recommendation with the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. That's what started the conversation. So if these hearings decide to change that comprehensive plan and future land use map, fine, no problem. But until the people vote and say to change that, we as the planning board, and I feel everyone sitting in front of me, needs to use that comprehensive plan and future land use map the way you're directed to use it. So that's all I have to say about that, Jeff. Hope I didn't get us in trouble. I just wanted you to know that's why it came to you unanimously, and that's why it didn't change when we brought it back. Thanks.
Thank you. Wynette Wilson.
Hi there. It's been a while since I've been up here. It's Waynette.
Wynette.
My dad's name was Wayne.
So,
I just wanted to say that I listened to that planning board meeting. I watched it on YouTube or whatever, and I was really impressed with all of the people that are now sitting on the planning board. There seems like they're really working hard, and I just wanted to express all their hard work and thank you for that. Second thing, since I'm up here, is there any way in the future that you all might think about reducing our property taxes? I think we got quite a bit of funds coming in from all of our building and things, or at least some kind of discount for senior citizens or the people that are disabled. If you just could kind of keep that in the back of your mind for future, it would help my pocketbook.
they have been some negotiation talking going on between several different people.
Okay.
So we shall see what it brings.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have signed up. Does anyone else want to come up for public comment? Hearing none? All right. We'll move on.
We have one that was emailed in.
Yes, right, I forgot. We'll read one into the,
This one was emailed in to Michael Malachek. Michael, my husband and I have lived in Mills River for the past 24 years in 2 different locations. We have watched many of the town council and planning meetings online, as well as attending a few. I know that you all are looking for a community feedback, and I'm not as comfortable speaking at the meetings as I am expressing my thoughts in writing to be shared with the council and the committee. As you all consider all the factors related to zoning, I would like the planning board and town council to keep in mind that there are small pockets of old neighborhoods greatly impacted by the neighboring zoned area. When one of these old neighborhoods is currently in an area zoned multi-use, multi-purpose, and then all or part of that area is zoned commercial or industrial, it leaves that small, older neighborhood very vulnerable and subject to a great decrease in property value. I would like to ask that time and effort be put forth to assure that these neighborhoods are either zoned as residential and or ensure that the commercial or industrial standards include a sufficient buffer to those neighborhoods. Just one example of such neighborhoods is the one in which we live on Clement Drive. When we purchased our home, the view out of the back was onto a small old farm, but the view is now the back wall of Lowe's distribution center. While the developer was very good to work with us, work in terms of sensitivity to the immediate neighbors, it was tastefully designed. It is surprising to see that that could happen right at our property lines. We are also impacted by the neighboring industrial park off of Brandy Branch Road and are aware that there will soon be more development bordering property lines. Thank you very much for your consideration, your time, and your efforts, Allison and Jim Sawyer.
okay, anyone else? Public comment? Hearing none. Okay. Okay, we'll move on to motion to approve our consent agenda with F being moved down to E in our regular agenda. Thank you, Shay. Second.
Second motion.
Thank you, Jeff. Any more discussion on this consent? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. All right, on to our regular agenda. A, the public hearing on R 24-03.
We need a motion to enter the public hearing first.
Same as
Sorry.
R. Thank you, Shay. Second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Sandra. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Okay, thank you. So I guess, does anyone on this council have a conflict of interest in any way with this, particular piece of property or situation in any way? Nope, me neither. Okay, moving on. I guess, Malcheck, you're gonna present? Okay.
Sure. Good evening, council. So we're hearing a request tonight, R2403, for a conventional rezoning for 14 Brandy Branch Road. The request is to go from the current zoning of light industrial to mixed use. We received this application in April of 24 from Mr. Bill Cater, the owner of the property. It's about a 2-acre property. It's one of the few undeveloped parcels in the Brandy Branch Industrial Park. That was platted in '94 before the town incorporated, also known as the Mills River Industrial Park. Everything in the Brandy Branch Road development is non-residential, commercial or light industrial in nature. And again, this is one of the few remaining parcels at the end at the cul-de-sac. It's located adjacent to DLV Roofing and also backs up to Clement Drive on the backside. There's a vicinity map included as a attachment B. I'll try to scroll through some of those as well. Forgive me because I'm working both the AV and this tonight. So as we've talked about with rezoning decisions, when we do rezone, we want to consider all possible uses in the new zoning district. But because it was disclosed to us, I'm going to disclose to you as well. The reason the applicant's moving to mixed use is because it allows both residential and non-residential uses. And so the desire of the applicant is to build a warehouse, metal building for fabrication purposes, and then to have a single family home on the backside of the lot for a family member. Light industrial only allows light industrial, does not allow the mixing of those two uses. So mixed use was the only district that would allow this, and that's why the rezoning is before you tonight. The light industrial uses are included in your packet as attachment C. Again, meant to permit any use not inherently obnoxious to urban and rural areas. But again, primarily we see manufacturing, warehousing, distribution facilities, storage, fabrication, etc. in those light industrial zoning districts. And again, mixed use, we've heard a lot about. Mixed use is kind of like an open book. It excludes really high impact developments like hazardous waste facilities, slaughterhouses. But in terms of everything else, non-residential or residential, it's going to be permitted unless it falls under one of our special use permit processes like tiny home parks or multifamily or something like that. So getting into the analysis, all the parcels abutting the property to the north are mixed use. So basically everything on the north side of Clement Drive. And then the properties on the west, southeast, and south are light industrial again. So we've got the Clement, I'll call it existing neighborhood that's zoned mixed use. And then on the south of Clement, including this property, we have the Brandy Branch Industrial Park, all zoned light industrial. Right now, we look at the future land use map to inform rezoning decisions. So this area is designated community center, future land use district. We did find there's a conflict or a typo in the comprehensive plan about this, and I'm going to go into detail with some quotes here. Basically on page 30, the land use vision map states that the community center, and this is in the descriptive text for the district, future land use district, the community center future land use category is, quote, to promote a mix of uses including commercial, residential, industrial, and agricultural. So it specifically mentions industrial. But if you go to the future land use chart, which we've looked at with the different categories, industrial is listed in the not desirable. So we interpreted that the actual description of the district overruled, probably an error with industrial being on the wrong side of the chart. And so that's why staff found this was consistent, but there is that gray area there that we wanted to highlight for you. Most likely this won't trigger a spot zoning challenge, but again, we always go through the statement of reasonableness just to protect council from that type of challenge. Again, with light industrial and mixed use areas being next to each other, if it is rezoned, it will be adjacent to a large area of mixed use, so it's not going to be singled out on its own. And again, the statement of reasonableness is in your packet for consideration. We do have the draft statement of consistency in your packet for consideration as well, attachment J. And then lastly, the planning board did consider this at their June meeting and did recommend approval, finding it to be consistent with the comp plan and the future land use map. And again, in their decision, kind of acknowledging that discrepancy in the comp plan was most likely due to an error. So that's my quick summary of everything. I'm happy to kind of go through the maps in more detail. But staff is recommending approval as well as with the planning board of the rezoning request, finding it consistent with the comprehensive plan and future land use map. I'll just scroll through these real quickly. So we've got the property map here. So again, you can see the property on the south side of Clement Drive at the end of Brandy Branch Road. Let me scroll through here. So again, here's the current zoning map. So you've got that property zoned light industrial, just like the rest of Brandy Branch. And then you've got your pocket of mixed use up here in the Clement residential area. And then your proposed zoning map would basically change that parcel to mixed use. So again, it would be the only one in Brandy Branch that would be mixed use, but because it's adjacent to an existing large mixed use zoned area, that's where the spot zoning challenge is less likely. And then again, here's just highlighting that this is in the community center future land use district, excerpt from the future land use map. And then just to highlight that inconsistency, you can see right here in the community center, industrial is a use that's encouraged. But in the chart, community center industrial is in the not desirable column. And happy to take questions from there.
Questions for staff?
Mr. Malchuk, would you help me understand why this wouldn't be a good application of the conditional zoning?
It is a possibility. Again, it's a more lengthy process, a higher fee. So at the end of the day, it's up to the applicant. So we present the options to them, and this is the one that was applied for. I see your point though, rezoning to a specific district just with those two uses.
And for the rest of the council, that's a little bit of my concern was simply that this is light industrial and there are existing light industrial businesses that have invested in their own property. And if we were to rezone it mixed use, that, as the name implies, encompasses a lot of things and doesn't mean that the current landowner may fall through what they've informed the town about, but the next landowner may think differently, want to put a multi-family in there, which is really incompatible with light industrial. So it just occurred to me because the threshold is 2 acres and over for a parcel to even be considered for conditional zoning. But to me, it seemed like a good opportunity because that way we could accommodate the landowner as well as assure the existing neighbors that are light industrial that it won't become an apartment complex or something, 10 years down the road. My thoughts.
I like it. Did this is really not, I don't even know, but is this applicant really ready to pull the trigger on what he's wanting to do? Is there a timeline that he's looking to get something started? Is that house a necessity for his family member? Or do we know any of that?
He is a representative here. I don't know all those details,
Okay.
but this came about because when we were reviewing site plans just for his commercial use, that's when the idea came up for the single family home. And that's when we kind of got into the weeds and then ended up in the rezoning process.
Anybody else got any good questions before we move on? No. Okay. So, hang on one second. I'll get to you. Um, do you have anything to present or to that point where the applicant could present anything of, value to this rezoning? If you're their representative. You state your name for the record, please.
Frank Kelsch, architect in Hendersonville. I've known the Caters for about 20 years or so. So we're good family friends. I've been helping Bill Cater with his warehouse portion of the project. So we're actively working on construction drawings for permitting. So every indication that I have from Bill is that they are getting ready to pull the trigger on that. In terms of the housing portion of it, I'm not as clear on the timing of that. I guess a couple of just comments that I might have in terms of whether it's a good idea or a bad idea. And I don't know all the zoning regulations with respect to the two light industrial and the mixed use per se, but certainly seems to me like would there be, in my mind, the people who would be most negatively affected would be the people in the residential district across on the north side of Clement Drive. If I was a homeowner there, that would be my biggest concern in terms of what the use happens on the opposite side in the light industrial park. And I think that one of the things that the applicant is trying to do with the house on the property would actually sort of soften that relationship from the residences on Clement Drive, because there would actually be a house directly opposite them, in some ways sort of creating a sense of a barrier between the residences on the north side and the light industrial park on the opposite side. Mr. Young, your comment about, would the people in the light industrial park be unhappy about if a apartment complex or something happened there? I guess my thinking, and of course you don't know these things, but is that if I was a developer, that would probably not be a choice that I would make in terms of trying to put residential adjacent to those uses. So in my mind, it seems like a good compatible use. I'm familiar with what the warehouse portion, the shop portion for Mr. Cater's business looks like. It is using some of his own product. So he is a builder of pool enclosures and things like that. He'd be using his own system. So I think it would have a very kind of a pleasing aesthetic, but also shielded a little bit by the use of the residential house that would be up in the northeast corner of the property. So I'm happy to stay here and answer any questions either from you or from the general public to the best of my knowledge.
Okay. We'll call you back up if we got anything, unless y'all got something right now. Okay. All right. So, public comment. Come on up, give us your name. We'll give you roughly 3 minutes each.
Name Robbie Fogel. We own the property joining Bill's property.
Okay.
So I just wanted to make sure that we were represented here. I don't know why the other people from the Mills River Industrial Association isn't here at Mills River Park, Industrial Park. I alerted them to this meeting, but I'll say I've known Bill since he owned that property before I purchased the property in about 10 years ago. He's been saying he's going to build a parcel, a building on it now for that entire time. I'm not in favor of it. It would be a house directly adjoining our property. I see it as a move to the association CCNRs limit the total number of parcels to 12 in that industrial park. I'm suspecting that this would at some point be subdivided because each of the parcels are 2 acres, and the Mills River would allow you to subdivide a parcel other than the fact that there are only 12 parcels allowed now in the current CCNRs. I look at it as being a devaluation of my property. If I have a house sitting right in my left back door. So I just wanted everyone to know the current status is that he can't do that. So you would have to do rezoning to allow that, but the current zoning is light industrial. So I'm not sure how one goes about a community well, not a community, but the mayor and the town council goes about rezoning and what factors are involved and how the community gets to participate in whether or not it is rezoned or not.
We're doing that right now, sir. This public
Okay, so-
hearing. Yes, sir. Yeah,
Y-
you're
yeah.
being part of it.
Well, I know, but I would have thought if our board of directors of our industrial park had known that this was the methodology, that the president would be here. I notified him they're both out of town, both of the co-presidents. I know they are not in favor. So I would feel that the industrial park has priority because it was established in the 1990s as far as the zoning. That without the park's approval, that you guys couldn't rezone something. That's the way I view it.
I got you.
That's why we bought it. I bought it in an industrial park, not a mixed use place.
Okay, thank
So
you.
thank
All right. Next,
Thank you. My name is Kim LaRoe. I live at 89 Clement Drive, across from this property that we're talking about. Clement Drive is a gravel road, single lane. And I've been there 35 plus years. I actually bought Clement's old house, so I'm up at the top of the hill. My only concern is the access to this zoning from light industrial to mixed use. I don't have any problem with the house going in on the corner that you guys have talked about. My only concern is that the traffic coming up Clement Drive from 280 or Highway 191 is not commercial traffic and entering into the light industrial zoning part of the property that we're discussing. So as long as they're still required to come up Brandy Branch to enter to that commercial property area, that's great with me. And I do not have a problem with the house. Of course, they'll have access to that house from Clement Drive. And again, Clement Drive is a gravel road, single lane. It's all privately owned. And I'm concerned, about commercial traffic. So I don't know if you guys can verify that for me, if,
it would be in their deed if they got a right of way up Clement or not, and I would think
I actually own the other side of Clement Drive, about 2 or 3 feet. And then the property that we're discussing, I would still have to offer an easement from my property
okay,
to that
I see.
house. But again, I'm just trying to avoid any commercial traffic. So that's my concern, and I think that's part of the other people that live up there, their concern. And I think that's all I have for you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment during this section? Come on.
My name is Jim Sawyer. I live on Clement Drive. My wife actually wrote the letter earlier. I do have some concerns about changing it to mixed use. Those concerns really were heightened as I've listened to the planning board, and now I understand that kind of opens a Pandora's box. So I'd love to think that the gentleman is honest in saying he'll build a nice home there. But once you change it to mixed use, things could fall through, as you say, or that person could make other decisions, and the town council nor the planning board would have nothing to say about that. I would have been much more comfortable with conditional zoning. I understand the concerns of cost with that, and I also understand the concerns of why council did not want to deny this in favor of asking the candidate to do that or the applicant to do that, because it would potentially delay them 12 months. But since they don't have any urgent plans to build a house, and they've been in the process of building this warehouse for many years, I think asking them to go back and consider conditional zoning would be the right thing to do.
Okay,
I actually know the older lady who lives next door to this property, and talked with her today, and she's quite concerned about it, actually.
I can understand.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawyer. All right, anyone else? Going once, going twice? Come on up. Yes, sir.
Frank Kelch again. I just wanted to address the gentleman's concern about the commercial traffic. So based on the information that I have, they would like to have the drive to the residence off of Clement Drive, but all the commercial traffic would be up Brandy Branch.
Do we know if they have a legal right of way out of there or not?
I don't know that information that he just.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
something that I wasn't
Okay.
aware of.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Public comment? Anyone else? Okay. Okay. We got any, yes. Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. I'm Jeff Moore, Chair of the Planning Board, and just to speak for us, we're under the impression that we're not allowed to specifically ask a property owner to request conditional zoning if they choose to do so. Of course, we take it up then. So, the concern, why wasn't this brought as conditional zoning? That's not something we could suggest.
Okay.
So,
No problem.
but
And it's a very
course-
new tool we have too.
Yes,
It's a very new tool.
We, of course, serve at the pleasure of council. We'd be glad to discuss it as you all see fit.
Okay, thank you, Jeff. Okay, any more discussion between us, questions need to ask moving forward before we close this public hearing part of it? None? Okay. I need someone to make a motion to, close the legislative public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Jeff. Second? Thank you, Shay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, so now we're down to a decision, basically. I'll entertain any motions y'all might have put on the table.
Mayor Gantz, both Mr. Sawyer and Mr. LeBreau helped make my point that we've got this effective tool called conditional zoning where we can accommodate the property owner that's making an application, but also give some assurance to neighbors about what they can expect to see on this property going forward, even after it changes hands without another public process of rezoning it to something else. So, while I'm disappointed that this is not coming to us as a conditional zoning application, I'm actually inclined to deny it in hopes that the applicant will come back and make application through conditional to allow both residential and commercial on that same parcel. And that would, and the condition of it, Mr. Malachek, correct me if I'm wrong, but one condition would be that all non-residential traffic could be restricted to Brandy Branch to access that parcel. I mean, that could be a condition of the zoning rezone.
Yes, for sure.
So I would feel better because this is, as Mr. Sawyer had said that, this is, in essence, from our perspective, this is forever. We make it mixed use. And so we sort of, open up the door and I just don't want to, we don't have to do that. We've got a better way of doing it. So I'd be inclined to reject it only for the purposes of hoping that the applicant will come back with the same ask, just through conditional mixed use rezone.
Is that a motion? as bad as I hate to say it as a mayor, I just think it's with all we got going on with mixed use right now, it's just to spot this right in here in mixed use is just not right now. It's not the time for it. There's a lot of questions to be asked as far as how they're going to get in and out of there. I'm sure when they bought that, they've got a right of way in through there, but the owner, before he comes forward with that conditional use permit and spends the money for it, he needs to spend a little time checking with the HOA of that, development and make sure that he's not crossing any bridges there. And then he needs to see, I mean, it's easy. I'm a builder, so I get into it all the time. We're just gonna bring this driveway right up here and cut right in here. Well, they can't. They don't own that driveway, so they can't make access that way. So we need to find out all these things before he spends any more money and brings it forward. You hear people in here say, well, if he does that, it would be a buffer for the neighbors on Clement. So there is a possibility for that. Jeff, hang on a minute. So, any more feedback before?
Could they continue to build the warehouse for storage in the next calendar year?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's nothing, I mean, that would be a
It's light.
legal,
Yeah, it remains light industrial.
yeah. Exactly. Okay, anything else? You good, Jeff? Usually we've already closed, so we're not gonna take any of this into a grain of salt. We've done closed it. They would have to come forward for the same exact thing. Same, it would be the same process for everyone. But they've got a HOA, that's in the deed restriction. That's where you're gonna find all this stuff, is gonna be in the deed. And it overrides a lot of our stuff even.
If I may, just
Yes.
because of the conversation, the gentleman back there, the people online and for the recording
Okay.
purposes are not able to hear the question. So if council so chooses to bring him up, I think that would be beneficial for those at home.
Go ahead and come up, because that was you sure? We'll need your name. Everything's for the record.
Hi, my name is Jamie Horton. I'm not a property owner, but I'm involved with one with Rowdy Fogel. So yeah, my question was, what prevents everybody else in that Brandy Branch neighborhood from wanting to split their property up and make a little money by building a residential house there too?
That's why I say, once this gentleman gets in and talks to lawyers and stuff and gets into the HOA, it's probably not gonna happen. And I got a great feeling that they're not gonna be able to make access to the home up Clements Drive either. Because all those homes up Clements would had a deeded right of way or easement out of there. And they're probably, you just can't jump over and come out just because it's handy. You've got to have a right of way in it and make it easement in and out.
And it's my understanding that in the deed, it says that you cannot split a lot.
Well,
in
And that, it
development.
could possibly be that simple. We can't override that if it's in there. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for letting me.
So I'm gonna let the property owner right here come up and speak one more time.
I have both copy of the CCNRs and a site map that was originally done. I don't have all of that with me. But the site map done by the surveyors restricted that industrial park to 12 parcels, all of them being approximately 2.1 acres each. And they are all, there is not a so with that requirement of 12 parcels, there's no lot split. You can't split anything. It's already set. And it's zoned light industrial. So I don't even understand how this can go about without having researched the CCNRs that I would feel have precedent over anything that's being trying to be done now, because they definitely state that. You know, we called town and asked them about splitting our property, And I knew that they would probably say yes, which they said yes, but the CCNRs don't allow me to do that because I could build two places. I can sell one, and it would be quite a good investment to take a parcel that was, 10 years ago, $50,000 and split it in two and have a house and an industrial building.
Right.
So, yeah, it's there legally to be researched. And I think I would have thought that was done before this.
Usually all that paperwork is done with lawyers. Lawyers typically do all that.
Well,
You
whose
can,
lawyers though? His?
it would have to be his for and yours against.
You're not an attorney. You're not.
no.
I didn't
He-
say- See, so,
Yeah. Yeah.
I jump in real quick.
Sure.
So in planning and zoning, we do not look at private legal agreements, which is what CCNRs are, restrictive covenants. They're private legal agreements between specific property owners. We do not look at those because again, that's between the private parties themselves to research, just like you're saying. Each private individual or private property owner would have to hire their own counsel to look into those restrictive covenants. Because again, we're not attorneys and I can't do that type of legal work. So
we mentioned to Bill because he was already clearing a lot, staked it off to put a little house in there. And we said, no, you can't do that. And my point to him, don't go waste a lot of your money for something you can't do. Planning, architect, you aren't doing, you're doing the commercial part. Certainly, and that's fine. But when we saw stakes going in the back corner that marked the corners of where the house was gonna be, we didn't want that done.
Okay, let's
So-
move along. Let's move
Okay.
along. Thank you, sir.
yeah, I just want to clarify.
Yeah, that's a
We
great.
don't
great-
look at that
that's a
when
great-
doing
yeah.
zoning decisions.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, so we've got a motion on the table to deny this rezone. If that's how you worded it, I don't remember exactly how it's worded, but
Oh, for the record, yes, I move that this council deny the application to rezone.
and Shay seconded it. No, Shay brought us out. So we got, but she will. Okay, Jeff and Shay. All right. Well, any more discussion?
My only discussion is, I don't think we're not trying to lot this in half, so it still wouldn't be more than 12. So
The subdivision, and again, I'm just speaking on behalf of a preliminary site plan I saw, but subdivision was never part of this because in mixed use, you can have multiple uses without subdividing. There's also
That's the
water,
problem.
this is also a watershed district. So
Yeah.
basically, the subdivision of land to create a lot for the house could not occur because it would not meet the watershed minimum lot size requirements.
Right.
So by rezoning to mixed use and having both uses on one parcel was the one way to make it work.
Gotcha. All right, so any more discussion? Hearing none. We'll make a vote. All in favor of Jeff's motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, the rezoning is denied.
We do still need, or I'll clarify with the clerk, do we still need to do the statement of consistency and deny the ordinance?
I would say no if they deny
Okay.
the application, that we don't need any further action.
Understood. Thanks.
I think so. Okay. Oh, let me find my agenda. Got it lost in here. There it is. Okay. So we're moving on to B, our solicitor ordinance.
Yes. Yeah, it's good evening, council. I'm going to start with this conversation. I may pivot to those within the room as well to help me through this. So before you is a consideration of a solicitors, peddlers, and itinerant merchants ordinance. At some point, I'm going to be able to say itinerant in the right way. But just a little bit of background on this. This is coming before you due to an incident coming in June 2024, where Mills River, as well as Henderson County Sheriff's deputies, received multiple calls and complaints regarding door-to-door solicitation and solicitors. And, again, there was complaints about conduct and other actions by those solicitors. when there was some contact with them, we found out at the time that although they did have permits, those permits were not for the town of Mills River. They were from another community in the area. And so as a part of that conversation at the June 27th meeting, some of council members raised those concerns and asked staff to look at drafting a solicitation ordinance that would restrict door-to-door solicitation without a permit. And so before you is the staff's recommendation for such a permit, such an ordinance. There is a permitting process that is built into this ordinance, as well as enforcement methods and other items. We do go into definitions of what solicitors are, what solicitations look like, as well as other items. And I'm happy to go into more detail specifically on any areas or questions or issues that you may have with it. And if I may, I'll just turn to Mr. Malachek as well. I know I just very briefly went over the background of that. Is there anything else you would like to add as well?
No, not at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure y'all got questions for staff.
Mr. McCarran, will you help me understand if we had such an ordinance in place when the complaints were received past summer, what would be the difference? What action could the town, the sheriff's department, or anybody else take? Or
Yes, so there are 2 points to that question. The first one is on the front end, we would require solicitors to come to the town of Mills River and receive a permit for that solicitation activity. And I believe the fee is $10 that's built into there. Now, if someone who is not permitted to solicit within the community, we do have an enforcement strategy on the back. Let me just make sure I get to that section here for those reading at home. It's under 112 015. The enforcement of the ordinance is on the second to the last page. It goes into strategies for enforcement, dealing with fines and subsequent fines that continue to build if we find out that a solicitor or solicitor's company essentially continues to defy the permitting requirement. To your point of enforcement, there are some issues when it comes to actual enforcement of the ordinance. As you can see in about the fourth paragraph, second one under discussion, we do call out the planning and zoning staff in the town of Mills River are ultimately responsible for that permitting, just like what we do for temporary vendors and the like. But we are limited in our ability to have those enforcement mechanisms in real time in the field. We do know that there are times that a solicitor will come by and knock on the door, and then by the time we hear about it and get over there, they may have moved on. So that we do know that there's a limitation to that. We also know that Henderson County sheriffs have told us that they're legally unable to enforce this municipal solicitation on our behalf. But they are able to they're able to respond to calls and complaints regarding solicitors, suspect individuals, and any other persons who refuse to leave a private property, a private residence, or obey those no trespassing signs. So really, it's one of those moments where, and I'm going to speak generally here, and I'm going to look for head nods back there in the room, but essentially for the act of solicitation without a permit, that in and of itself is going to be difficult to enforce. However, the ability for a resident to say, ask that solicitor to leave their property. If that solicitor does not leave at that point, then it does move into another conversation about trespassing on private property, and Henderson County would be handling that.
So without the ordinance, if a situation arises and you call the sheriff's department and they come out, without the ordinance, there's nothing they can do. But with the ordinance,
Okay.
they can.
It's,
So I would, if I may, I'll clarify. For the sheriff's department, if there is a situation that falls, as I mentioned, calls and complaints around solicitors who refuse to leave that property, then essentially that solicitor or anyone is actually now dealing with trespassing on private property. So Henderson County sheriffs would be responding to those complaints and issues. Essentially, what this does is set the groundwork for us to be able to start permitting solicitors to understand who's in the field and who's not in the field. So if we start to get questions or comments to town hall or to others, we're able to better understand who may or may not be actually permitted to be within the community soliciting. And again, depending on staff time and expectations right now, quite limited, with other code enforcement and other issues, that there are enforcement strategies on the back end. Once we find out that somebody is not permitted, so let's just say, and Mr. Malachek, correct me on this one, but for instance, if we find out that someone is soliciting, there's been a complaint, they have not left property, we find out that they're also not, they have not been permitted by the town, that there are fees and fines that we can also tack on to that because we found out that they are not permitted to be doing so within the town. So, and the example from June, if Henderson County Sheriffs had responded to it because the person did not leave when requested to leave, and then we found out that they were also not permitted by the town, we would then be able to levy some other fines on top of them for such an action. Whereas before this ordinance, or if this ordinance is not passed, there would be no other actions by the town for for not being permitted. If that makes sense.
And it's my understanding, reading through this, that not the company would be permitted, but each individual out there knocking on doors, correct?
So, Mr. Malachek, I wanted to clarify that for us as well.
I believe that we would collect the information of every individual, so photographic ID, name,
Okay,
tag number of vehicles. So think of it as like a registration form almost. So we would have every individual's specific information and we can run that through some publicly available databases, sex offender, stuff like that. But we can't do a full criminal search. But once they're registered, if there's an incident, we have all that information on file. And that's, if it's a behavior and conduct issue, that's when we can say, okay, you came in without a permit, you were already given a verbal warning. Now you owe $250 in fines because you violated this agreement, part of the permit.
okay.
Am I right in the assumption that the sheriff's department can't enforce it because there's not a similar ordinance in the county? Like if we adopted an ordinance that looked just like the county, kind of like animal control, it's police power that, and we allow them to enforce that police power within our towns, though the sheriff department does animal control.
We'll get some,
The resident expert.
we'll get, yeah.
So when Matt called me to address this issue, I spoke to our staff attorney. There are numerous First Amendment issues with us enforcing specifically whether somebody can or cannot solicit in a community anywhere in North Carolina. To answer your question, anywhere in North Carolina, if a private property owner asks somebody to leave their property and they refuse to leave, they're now in criminal violation of the North Carolina General Statute. We can be called and we can, whatever the property owner wants. If they want a verbal warning that time, we can verbal. If they're asking to be arrested, we can do an on-view arrest if we know they've been asked to leave and they refuse to leave. Or under North Carolina General Statute, if they've been told not to be on the property and they return, if we're there when they return, we can arrest them and take that warrant. Otherwise, the property owner with that person's information can go to the magistrate and get that warrant. But the enforcing of the civil statute, there's enough First Amendment right issues, just like what we addressed with folks standing in the intersection collecting money. I can deal with them on the impeding the flow of traffic issue. But per your staff attorney and other attorneys, it's a First Amendment issue. They have the right, free speech, to be out there and engage folks at the traffic lights without our intervention. So I hope does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Sergeant.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Not, I'd entertain a motion to approve or decline.
I had a question.
Okay.
I was wanting a little clarification. I think this is a good tool to have in place for at least the town having notice and information on people who are soliciting in the town. And on the yard sale, I was wondering, would they need to also include estate sales in there? Or is that considered a yard sale? Where I know sometimes they'll do auctions.
Mhm. We'll have to ask the staff.
So as of this moment, the yard sale definition calls out specifically the selling of personal goods at a person's residence for profit. And that it includes garage sales and rummage sales, if that is something that, if estate sales or something that council so chooses to want to explicitly state within that, we can also, if council wants to move forward, that can be something that can be as amended within the ordinance itself. I don't want to speak for my interpretation of a sale of personal goods at a person's residence for profit. I want to, yes, if that is a question, I want to make sure that we clarify that as a part of the amendment process here.
Up to you. Want to add it?
Well, if it's already, included in there, I just wanted to ask about that.
There would not be a, and I'm going to look over at our trustee clerks, and that if you move hypothetically, if council moves to adopt, you can adopt with the amendment of adding estate sales to the definition of yard sales within the ordinance, and then that way it can be explicitly stated within the past ordinance. And that would be my preference, instead of allowing it to be up to interpretation. If that's something council so chooses, we should be explicit.
So if you want to add it, now's the time.
Okay, then I would like it added.
Okay. Any more questions? Anything else? Somebody got their hand up in the back? Come on up.
So on the estate sales, hey. I'm Jenny
Give us your name.
Jenny
We
Seeley.
know you, but give us your
Yeah,
name.
I know. I'm always here. Trying. On the estate sales, please add that because, usually how estate sales are run, they have an outside entity that comes in and prices everything. So it's not necessarily a person who owns things. It's a person who is trying to sell stuff to get their bills paid. So
Okay.
definitely please add that to
Okay.
that, please.
Will do. Thank you. All right. So it's in there. So motion to approve or deny?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consideration of the solicitors and peddler and internet merchants ordinance.
Okay, let's just clean that up just a little bit. I think that consideration throwing me off. Is that right?
Yes, because if I'm understanding you
Strike
correctly,
consideration.
you want to approve this ordinance with the addition of estate sales to the definition of yard sale.
Yes.
So we got a motion now. We're good. So second,
I'll second that motion.
thank you, Jeff. Any more discussion on this solicitor ordinance? Hearing none? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, moving along, animals and town-owned facility ordinance.
All right, Mayor and Council. So this proposed ordinance before you today is a continuation of the animals in the workplace discussion that began, the resolution that was passed 2024-08, which was passed on July 11th this year, really talked about animals in the workplace. And so as a part of the conversation, and as we've continued to move forward with the implementation of animals in the workplace, there was a conversation about whether or not there was also intent by council to look at animals in town-owned facilities as a whole, instead of just the workplace, which is, the offices and professional areas that staff work in. And so as the background tells you, the the 60-day grace period that the resolution gave to implement policies and procedures around that ran out on September 9th. So this on Monday. And so we've gone ahead and implemented the workplace side of that administrative policy for animals in the workplace itself. And this is just for your consideration if council so chooses to move forward with extending from animals in the workplace to animals in town-owned facilities. And that would, with applicable exceptions for, state and federal law around service animals. And so I'm happy to answer any other questions that you all may have about that. I'm happy to go through what town-owned facilities look like, what the potential ramifications are, consequences, et cetera.
Questions? I will state that this was part of that deal brought up by the league when they come and did their evaluation of our assessment on our liabilities. It was another thing that they brought up that we needed to look into, so.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, the one of the other elements I meant to call out as well is around leased property. And so this allows for exceptions around leased properties such as the library here as well, because we know that they do fantastic programs that deal with animals as well. So we made sure that there are applicable exceptions where we can build in to ensure that programming can continue to move forward in those examples. And there are avenues for getting that approval either through the leasing process via council approval, or if it ever falls to a town manager approval, that they may be able to approve that as well.
Yeah, as long as their lease approves it with their liability on them, the leasee, I'm okay with it. Any questions? I'd entertain a motion to approve or deny. They made a motion to approve, second.
I'll second the motion.
Jeff, second the motion. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, moving right along. Discussion on public hearing dates for rural rezoning R-22-2402. So we all seen the planning board the other night, ones that was here, the others watched online that could, and so what's y'all's take of potentially taking this to a public hearing at this point? Any discussion on it? Or thoughts? Conflicts?
Since I was one that was trying to pump the brakes at our last meeting, I guess I'll speak up and say, I was supportive of referring back to the planning board because I was wanting them to help us, because there is opposition to just the full rezoning to rural residential, and so I was just trying to seek compromise, and I didn't want this council to try to figure out what that would look like, whether it was a corridor, a new zoning district, or anything like that. So that's, I was hoping the planning board would help me, but and for Mr. Ross came and spoke clearly about why they've moved forward the way they've had, and I respect that. And for that reason, I said we just need to get on with it and get this thing scheduled and make sure we get everybody and their brother into this public hearing session or public hearing for their input. But I thank let me publicly thank the planning board, because they had 2 lengthy meetings on 2 different subjects, but they don't get paid a whole lot, meaning 0. They put in a lot of time.
So for the ones that's in here that might not know, we're looking at possibly rezoning the 280 corridor from Schoolhouse Road to the Transylvania County line, and look at making lot sizes bigger and cutting out the commercial part of it altogether, except for the, now, when I say cutting out, we're not gonna put anybody out of business. If it's there and active, it's good to go. But we're talking about having one node is presented from the planning board up there at, the old Longview store, the BP, Hyder's Country Cupboard, the concrete plant, and just a little node kind of right in there. Just what we're looking at doing. So, we're trying to set a public hearing to where everybody can come speak their piece. If, want to keep it more rural, that's the only way we know that we possibly could do that. So with that being said, what are our potential dates that we could use? We're hoping we'll get a big enough crowd. We're going to go over to Mills River and use their auditorium at the elementary school.
So yes, Mr. Mayor, there are, at the last meeting, the 2 dates, October 10th and November 14th were removed due to scheduling conflicts. So we now have available October 24th and October 29th as potential dates that are being held for us.
Everybody look at your calendars if you don't know for sure and see if any of those work.
One other point for the council as well is that the principal did indicate that availability of the auditorium will start to be limited beginning in November and December due to conflicts with the school's basketball schedule. So these are, not to say that there aren't potentially other dates, but it is going to be a little bit more difficult to find that space for dates going after October.
Okay. Suggested date.
I'm good the 24th.
I got 24th,
Either date works for me.
either one. So either one. So
What was the other one?
29th.
24th on a regular council meeting.
Let's just do that. Y'all good with that? So, by motion, y'all agree to do it on October 24th. At what time? Do we have a time limitation there, in or out at the school that we know of?
I was not made aware of any
So
time
we'll just say 6:30, and then will be the start time for it. Are we gonna try to tack anything else on that agenda that night, or try to keep it just to that? Right? Since it's a regular night. We have nothing. Let's try to keep it to that, if any way possible.
Yeah, that would be potentially preferential, but I'll make sure, well, I'll look at the calendar. If there seems to be some items that we need to talk through, I'll bring that up to your attention as well.
Okay, thank you. So, by motion, somebody make a motion.
I make a motion that we set the public hearing for R 24-01. No, never mind. I make a motion that we set the public hearing dates for the rural residential rezoning R 2402 to October 24th at 6:30
At,
at
what?
Mills River Elementary School Auditorium.
Okay. I got a motion. How about a second? Shay, second. Any more discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none. Okay, we moved Brown Ridge down for a discussion item. So when staff gets caught up, we'll let council lead us in this one, since we drug it back out of the. Good. Okay. Okay. This is on Brown Ridge, correct? Okay. All right. Anyone else want to discuss Brown Ridge?
My purpose for asking to come out of consent to be discussed in our regular agenda, our regular meeting, was simply, I will be out of town on the 10th. Can't make that date. Not very much want to be part of the discussion, part of the process. So, would ask this council if we could look at another date so that I could be in attendance for the.
Okay, so it's my understanding that we could potentially have the, I don't know, I guess we'll call them a client in this situation or property owner come and present as they did to the planning board, if y'all so desire, without being in a public hearing setting. Is that correct?
Yeah, so yes, so this is a legislative decision, so there would be no action that that council could take on that because the public hearing is a requirement in order to move forward for action. But if council so chooses and wishes to hear from the client in this case, that we are able to have some kind of discussion or add a discussion item onto the agenda, onto an
Gotcha.
agenda.
So I guess the question is, do we want to do that? I guess it's my understanding the clients come forth and asked if we'd be willing to have that conversation with them, or do we just want to go strictly into the public hearing? And maybe give them a little background on the reasoning for that.
Yeah, so I'll be careful to not speak for the client.
Sure.
But my understanding and generally speaking around types of conditional rezoning requests.
And I would like to let the public know that this is our very first conditional zoning permit that we've been faced with. So we're learning as we go here.
Yeah, so there are no clear direct ways. Councils and different municipalities and communities can do it differently. But I'll just say in general, because of the conditional rezoning piece, that there's a back and forth, there's a conversation that can tend to happen between a client requesting conditional rezoning, the planning board, council members, et cetera, about what may be able to be approved for that conditional rezoning. And so if that feedback can get to the client in a timely manner for them to be able to, make adjustments, be able to run the numbers, whatever they need to do on their end in order to bring some final proposal to and for council's consideration, taking into account their thoughts on that proposal, then there may be a more fruitful conversation as a part of the public hearing as well as for whatever potential action council may take. So it does allow for that flexibility. It can be done. I've talked to some communities where it could be as early as before the proposal even goes to the planning board. Sometimes developers will come and request to speak to council members about concept maps and concept plans before it even gets permitted, all the way up through the public hearing where a developer or a client is able to provide a presentation to council to make that decision, before making that decision. Another action that I have heard that some councils do is that they, if council as a whole so chooses, they can state that the public hearing is going to be held, but no action is going to be taken after that public hearing, and that an action will be handled at a subsequent meeting. And that allows for time and consideration from what the client may hear at that meeting to then be able to prepare their information, their side, to be able to come before council before an action is taken. So again, there are multiple avenues in which you can do this. There are the only real piece that I think is pertinent for this is that the public hearing has to be done per general statutes, but before that conversation, after that conversation, they are able to, if they're able to talk and get better insight into what you all are thinking, it just provides potentially a better product at the end of the day.
So if the applicant went back and changed it dramatically, could it go back to the planning board for their recommendation after the changes? If they come and met with us, this is all new ground for us.
Sure.
But say if they come to us and they just had this casual meeting and told us what their concept was, and we told them, nah, since it's conditional, no, we ain't all about that. Well, they go back and change this thing, say 30% in some form or fashion, density or height or whatever, road size, whatever. I don't even know what the differences could be. But if they come back and changed it, 20% or more, could it possibly go back to the planning board for their recommendation coming forth to us?
I'm going to look at Mr. Malachek just to make sure I don't speak out of turn on this.
It does not have
It
to,
does not
but it's
have
at
to.
council's pleasure.
Okay,
Again, with conditional zoning, the thought is the development concept can kind of be negotiated and massaged as you get further on through the process. So if it's a slightly different preliminary plan council seeing from the planning board, that's not uncommon.
okay. So if I could ask you to step up for just 1 second. I don't know if you remember or not, we may have to dig in. Do you remember what the vote was?
I
Like,
do. It
okay.
was 5-2 to deny.
5-2 to
Yes,
deny.
sir.
Okay. That's really all I have for you right now.
David has to excuse herself. It might just be two, so we might have to move.
Well, I'm sure, but the question is, are we moving it, or are we even gonna put the potential out there to just hear what they got to say without being in a public hearing setting? That's the question.
If I can interrupt, you're out the 10th. Yes, we now only have 2 members for that meeting. The next meeting is well, for certain. The next meeting is the 24th, which you've set
Yes,
for just that, public hearing.
yes,
The next meeting, the mayor is out of town, and the next one is your organizational meeting. So you might be looking at a special meeting
exactly,
for this, if you all want to be here.
exactly.
And just for clarification for those in the room and listening at home, Mr. Mayor, you mentioned, not necessarily having to go to public hearing, but as of right now, my understanding is that it would still be a publicly available meeting.
Absolutely.
Exactly right. So just
Yeah.
because some people may get, a public meeting versus a public hearing confused, I just wanted to clarify
Right,
that.
right. Okay, thank you.
Well, Mayor Gauntz, my thoughts are this is I would like for that non-actionable meeting where the applicant comes before the council and gives us their presentation. It gives the town Mills River residents another chance to either come in or watch, see, and maybe they've changed it some since the planning board's action, maybe they haven't, but nonetheless, I just think it's good to have it presented once more and presented to us, because yes, they spent several hours in front of the planning boards, and we've all attended and watched those meetings, so we're somewhat familiar with it, but I still feel better with the opportunity to have them come before us and educate us on what they're planning on doing, and also like that the residents can have one more chance to see and hear what they want to do, and then the subsequent public hearing to take action on their application, then everybody be better informed. So,
Okay.
it's better to have too much information than too little. So
So I guess the question being now, if we did that, when would we do it? If we try to put it on a regular agenda, it's gonna be early January. So we'd have to have a special meeting just for that. But we might also be able to knock out a couple other things that we might need to work on the 24th that we won't have time to also.
the 29th was thrown out as a possible zoning public hearing date. Why we would consider a special meeting on October 29 just to hear the applicant of Brown Ridge.
Okay. Yeah. If for some reason we couldn't come to a agreement and we had to recess the public hearing on the rezoning, the residential, could we come back on the 29th and take action on that, or would we have to notice that again for 7 days or 48 hours, or what's our law on that?
Anytime you're in a public hearing, yes, you can recess that, but you have to have a specific date and time. But it's a regular meeting that you're recessing. If we're talking about the same public hearing.
Yes, yes,
One on the 24th.
yes.
It is a regular meeting. You could always add something to that agenda if that's what you're
On the
thinking.
29th.
Yeah,
That's what I'm getting at. 'Cause-
yeah. I mean,
okay.
You would at that time add something to the agenda.
Okay, hold tight just a second. Okay, so everybody understanding that we'd also have an opportunity to possibly take that home that night and come back on the 29th and make a decision on that public hearing. If we don't think we've digested enough over there. If we get, I'm hoping a lot of people get up and speak, and I think we're gonna have a night full of that to get. So 29th still works for everybody, if have to be. Okay, I've got one person in the back. Come on up.
I just have a question about the meeting, the special meeting on the 29th. Is that going to have the public would be able to?
Oh,
attend, or-
anytime, unless we're in closed session, you're always welcome.
Perfect. That's what I need.
You're welcome. So will somebody make a motion to, if that's what we're gonna do, any more discussion on that? Sure.
We have potentially no quorum on the tenth. And your UDO consultant is coming. Is that something we need to reschedule? And if so, do we want to wait on setting up a special meeting? Do you talk to them?
The UDO presentation does not need to be rescheduled because it's more of an informational presentation about the specifics the consultant will be doing through the project. So if council's okay with that continuing, that could always be on YouTube to be watched.
Okay, so no action, no vote
No,
action.
no
Okay.
action. It's so you can meet the consultant and get detailed information on the work.
Okay, thank you. Good call though.
But I do have a question actually. Is the October 29th meeting for the preliminary presentation by the Brown Ridge?
Not a public hearing, but a preliminary presentation by them.
Okay. Is that,
Does that make sense to everyone?
So again, my understanding then would be, it's, the 29th would be a special meeting. So, for that one cause. So for that being said, this is also under the understanding, unless I am, not seeing, missing the person in the room, there's no one from that, from the client or the client's perspective here to speak on whether or not that will work for them. So what I would do is if council so chooses to move forward with that, I would reach out to them and see if they would make that work, and then I can, inform you all. But that's, so as of right now, we're under the assumption that we're going to set that special meeting for that, where we didn't have to confirm that they can actually do it.
Okay. And we've got time to set that on our next, we can look at that on our next meeting and
Yes,
set it at that point.
yes.
Okay. I, yeah, I mean, I think that's the right thing to do, is what I think. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and to that point, because it's a special meeting, I think it actually creates an easy avenue for that if that's what you wish to do.
Yes. Okay. All right.
Complicate this one more time. I just want to make sure I understand. When you first asked me about the 29th, as to whether if you're on the 24th and you need to recess it, this would be a special meeting.
Right.
So basically you could recess your first meeting and finish that before or after your special meeting.
Okay.
So you'd have two meetings that night.
Okay. Understood. I knew there was a catch there somewhere. Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll wait to set it on the 29th till we know they can be here.
Okay.
Okay.
That's
That's all? Any more discussion on Brown Ridge? If none, we'll move on. Okay, other business. Anybody got any other business? Hearing none? Somebody make a motion for us to go into closed session to personal matters
You want to take a recess first?
where we can, but
Okay.
look, we got to do this. We got to make a motion to go in regular session.
Okay. I'll,
Shay made the motion, second.
I'll second.
Sandra second. Any discussion about going into closed session? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? None.